we decided that we wanted to do a little bit of a discussion about self-esteem and the connection to congruence. And I was just, throughout the meditation, I was like wanting to make sure that I said that it's like our ideas behind sort of the discussion is to really sort of prompt your own sort of contemplation and reflection. It's, you know, the Satir model isn't about telling people what they should do or how it should be. It's just to like bring possible new awarenesses so we can make new decisions or make new choices, and also notice what our own belief systems are, because oftentimes beliefs and perceptions are sort of the root of like what causes us pain. So I prepared a PowerPoint, and I'm finding that it's really a lot of fun because it really sort of taps into my creativity, and then I like want to talk to people about what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing and what I'm contemplating. So I feel like this is really just very much a sharing about what I found and what I've discussed. So there is no, you know, and Satir's saying was like, beware of the one right way, and there is really no one right way. And one of the things that really stood out for me was when I was reading Louise Hay's book. It said, Virginia Satir said there's 268 ways to do the dishes. So, you know, just that there's many, many ways, and there is really no one right way. It begins with self-esteem and congruence. And one of Satir's sayings was, the hope lies in our choices. So remember, that's one of our meta goals, is that it's like to help people become a better choice maker. So in relation to self-esteem and in relation to congruence, you know, the hope lies in our choices, and knowing that no matter what, we always have choices. However, we don't maybe like our choices, but we still have choices. And once we realize that, and we become even more aware, oh, well, I do have a choice, even though I may not like it, it allows some freedom to take place. It's like, then you get to make a choice, and that means that you become a better decision maker. So being a better decision maker and knowing you have choices allows freedom, and it also can elevate your self-esteem and your level of congruence. So this book, The Well-Being Writ Large, is the central work of Virginia Satir by Barbara Jo Brothers, is where I was reading it in this last week. And she talked about, and this is how it sort of like became really interesting to me, is she says that self-esteem is the gateway to congruence. And once you arrive at congruence, you are going to experience harmony. So self-esteem is the gateway to congruence. So I had a discussion with John Banman, and I was reading things to him from this book, and he's like, well, wait a minute, I don't know. So then we decided that, well, wait a minute, which comes first? Is it the chicken or the egg? Is it self-esteem or congruence? Because the way Barbara Jo Brothers talks is like self-esteem is the gateway, which made me think, well, wait, you have to have good self-esteem to have congruence. And John and I were discussing that that's not necessarily true. If you have a congruent moment or congruent experiences, that you are going to have self-esteem. So they really very much go hand in hand. It's not self-esteem comes first and then you experience congruence. So then we were talking about, oops, hold on, I have to go back. So then we were talking about self-esteem. And the way I understand self-esteem, and this is the Wikipedia's definition, confidence in one's own worth or abilities, self-respect. And the Satir model has been sort of how you experience yourself, meaning not how you judge yourself, because I didn't ever really like that whole judging yourself, because when we judge ourselves, that's coming from a very cognitive place. And so one of the weaknesses of how the Satir model sort of works with self-esteem that we're looking at changing is that it's really very focused on feelings. How do you feel about yourself? Or how you judge yourself. So very much about cognitive and about way too much about feelings. So we want to incorporate and in a way sort of change that sort of real focus on just how do you feel about yourself, because, you know, feelings come and go, they're really just messengers. And so John and I discussed, like, self-esteem really has, it has 3 dimensions. One of those dimensions is your worthiness includes what you value about yourself. So if you have relatively high self-esteem, it means that you feel worthy and you value things about yourself. So it's a worthiness that includes what you value about yourself. And 2 is your level of competence. So like, how competent do you feel? How good are you at what you do in your life? How competent do you feel in areas of your life? So that means that I can have a level of competence in some areas and maybe not very competent in other areas. So maybe as a therapist, I feel really competent. Maybe as a driver, I feel very competent. I feel really good about myself. So what I do, and yet maybe as a mother, I didn't feel very competent about my mothering abilities. So that then would decrease my self-esteem, how I experienced myself and my worthiness and how I valued myself as a mother. And then 3 is your affiliation. So I really like this affiliation because it really is about the quality of relationships and who you bring into your life. So that's very intentional that we choose people to be in our lives. And John Bandman would say is like, who gives you energy and who takes away your energy, and who would say, and I took it another step saying, who do I bring energy to? You know, how would I know if I bring energy to somebody? How would I know that? So I like that question. So how do I know that I'm bringing energy to somebody? And is that reciprocal? Because I can have a lot of people in my life that I know I bring really good energy to, and they feel really good. But when I walk away, I feel sort of depleted. So I want to look at like the quality of my relationships. And as we grow and change, and as we begin to develop and almost evolve, we may notice that we are attracting and we're choosing to have relationships that really bring energy into my life, which then increases my self-esteem. I feel good about myself. I feel worthy. I value myself. I feel really competent when I'm with people around me that I am choosing intentionally to be with. And so you'll see under the picture, I put compassion and uniqueness. So one of the things we are looking at in the model is that, you know, we say self-esteem, but we sort of like this sort of self-compassion, because the way self-esteem has been defined has been very much about feelings and really about judging, where we want to help people begin to have more self-compassion, where they can be more accepting and more kind and more allowing that, oh, I made a mistake, or oh, maybe I didn't really like what I did, but hey, it's a valuable lesson and I can learn from it, I can grow from it, and I can be kind to myself when that happens. So then I wanted to look at congruence. You know, congruence leads to harmony. And John and I discussed sort of like, you know, we know that the I am, the soul, the divine, the spirit, the soul of me, the divine within me, the spirit of me is my I amness. And then we have this, like in the beginning, Satir talked about congruence as a communication model. And in her communication model, it was initially, she talked about congruence as like that the inside and the outside match. So meaning that if I'm angry inside, on the outside, I'm like, I'm angry. And, or if I'm sad on the inside, I can say I'm sad. And she was very much about helping people, especially families, grow with like what's going on the inside is what you're going to see on the outside, and helping them make better choices about how they express what's going on in the inside, instead of like smile on the outside, on the inside they're steaming or they're fuming. It's like that created this real sort of separation from really the I amness, because in a way you're betraying yourself and you're saying, I want to I don't want this person to not like me, so I will sort of in a way betray myself, which we know that that creates lowering your self-esteem. So there, because you're sort of betraying yourself, it reduces your self-esteem, but there is a positive intention, is like, I want to be loved, or I want to be accepted, or I want to be validated. So over here, you'll see that it says relationships. So congruent is like congruent with me, and I'm congruent with others. And in the beginning, Satir was pretty much focused on sort of like the inside out. So inside I am, and how I then show myself to others, how I allow others to really experience the me that I am. That leads to more congruence, is when there's when that's in harmony, I guess you could say. Harmonious with me and harmonious with you. I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. I am having this experience, and I don't have to be abusive or put that on you or blame you or go into my coping energy, but I can be who I am, and I can express myself with myself, because oftentimes we avoid, even pretend like we're not having the experience. So she really focused on being congruent with yourself. And so that means being honest about what you're experiencing. And then she evolved that over time. She evolved it to really include this sort of deeper soul divine spirit of I am. And that was when she was like, we go from the inside to the divine, or to the universe, or to God. So she really evolved into this deeper place of that. If I'm congruent in that deeper place, like manifesting your true self with someone else, that you are at that point, you are connecting with God, you are connecting with the universe. And she even went as far as saying that, you know, you are God, you are the universe, you are a part of that. There is that oneness. Remember the fourth birth. You're very much about the oneness. So then it goes back to, then we're like, so then how about self-esteem congruence? You know, which comes first? Or can you have both? Can you have one and not the other? And so healing energy comes from congruence. So congruence holds healing energy. So when you're congruent, there is a healing energy that you are embodying, that you're experiencing. And people tend to be really attracted. You're like a little magnet attracting people when you are congruent. And they just like want to be with you, because your energy field around your body is healing, and it heals a person. So if you have low self-esteem, it means probably you're not being very congruent in that moment, which means that you don't have a lot of healing energy at that moment. So I think that's why Satir really did the meditations, because it helped people begin to really connect with their self, their soul, their spirit, and that's where the healing energy is. So also healing energy is freed through congruent communication. So remember, in the beginning, she was all about congruent communication, but that frees up healing energy. So when we can begin to like be congruent in our communication, it leads to the healing energy that then leads to like this deeper place of I am connected with God, or I am God, or this oneness energy. And then congruence is that she even went as far as saying, this was back, I think, in New People Making, that congruence is a spiritual experience. So she was evolving from, you know, the communication model to the spiritual, more spiritual depth of congruence is a spiritual experience, because when I'm congruent, I have a connection with the universe. I become one with the universe. I become one with, you know, the divine or God or whatever you want to call the universal creative intelligence. So when we're congruent, when we're experiencing congruence, it goes hand in hand with harmony. So there is a harmony, a harmonious experience, which Jennifer was saying, grace. It's like it's harmony, it's grace, that there is this sort of congruence that leads to harmony, grace, and, you know, acceptance, love, peace. All of our yearnings can be met when we're experiencing the congruence. So then I sort of looked at, I sort of have been reflecting on, so where do we get self-esteem? Like, when does that start to happen for us? Does it happen when we're a child? And I was talking to someone yesterday, and we were talking about sort of the alpha brainwave state of when you're a child up until the age of like really 4 or 5, where your brain is so incredibly open, just taking in everything, you're downloading it. And if you're downloading information from others, which we are, because that's how we learn, we can then make meaning out of what our experiences are that may lead to belief systems that we're not good enough, belief systems that I'll never be good enough, perceptions that there's something wrong with me, that no matter how much I do, it won't be good enough. So we, in that alpha state, we download information and beliefs about ourselves. And we make meaning of it, and then we walk that sort of like almost like a map, the roadmap for the rest of our lives, until we whether we start meditating or yoga or some sort of practice that makes us look at like, wait a minute, I'm doing this. What is my underlying belief or perception that makes me believe this stuff about myself? And so then I look at self-esteem and like how we maybe say things to ourselves when we make a mistake, or when somebody's critical of me, like what do I do with that information inside of myself? Do I give myself a hard time? Do I sort of almost like beat myself up? Am I meaner to me than I allow anybody else to be? So there's that saying, I'm my worst critic. So we want to really, I guess, knowing that when I'm my worst critic, there is a positive intention. I want to be better. I want to be accepted. I want validation. However, like we look at like what would need to change that I could be more compassionate. So if I have a friend that makes the same mistake I do, I can be very forgiving. I can be very accepting. I can be very loving. If I make that mistake, I may really give myself a hard time. So maybe I lock myself keys in the car. Maybe I get really mad at myself and I think that, why are you so forgetful? But if my friend would do that, I wouldn't do that to them. I'd be like, it's okay, you were just really busy. And I could be very forgiving, very compassionate, very loving. So we really want to look at like what would need to change in order for us to begin to be even more compassionate to ourselves, more loving, and also like learn from those experiences instead of just giving ourselves such a hard time, which reduces self-esteem, which reduces congruence, which reduces the amount of healing energy that we have. So I have these questions for the breakout room, and I think I probably get a little bit over eager with these questions. So I don't know if you want to screenshot them or not, but, and if you're on a Mac, let's see, how do you screenshot, Jennifer? Is it Shift Command 3, I think will screenshot. Anyway, so first question, what do you most value about yourself? So remember, like one of the things with the self-esteem is like, what do you value about yourself? Your value, your worthiness. So what are some of the things you most value about yourself? And see if you can like, maybe not just have like a behavior, because people tend to like do. I'm a human doer, not a human being. So what do you most value about yourself? And oops, I have 3 instead of 2. What areas of your life do you experience your competence? And what areas are you most challenged? So what areas of your life do you experience your competence? And then the third question, what relationships feed your soul? How does your body feel when your soul is being fed? Because really we are in these human bodies for a reason. Otherwise we would just be these little spirits like floating around the place. We have this body to bring us messages, to help us learn, to keep us grounded. So we don't really ever want to almost like ignore our human body, and our body holds lots of information for us. So what would you be willing to change? Perhaps a belief or an expectation or even a family rule that may allow you to experience increased congruence, self-esteem, and harmony. So what would you be willing to change? And I'm not saying will you change, but what would you be willing to maybe take a look at? And that could be maybe how you talk to yourself, how you take care of yourself, what you ignore, and maybe you can start paying more attention to certain parts that you ignore.